Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to Multimedia Technology's guide to tweaking your computer for audio. Now, I do have other tweak guides in my YouTube channel, but since the Windows 10 Full Creators Update 2017, there have been some changes to the way the control panel and the way some of the system settings within Windows 10 works. So I thought it was important to do this video again and show exactly what you should be seeing so that there's no confusion and no trouble in getting it done. Now, there are a lot of tweaks out there, but I can assure you the best I can that the ones I'm going to show you are the simplest, the easiest, and the most effective. And you are completely welcome to argue with me about it in the comments. But if it works, it works. And that's ultimately all we're interested in. So you are here because you are having trouble running audio software on your computer. You are getting glitches, clicks and pops, dropouts, or it's just, catching fire and not really working out for you. Now, Windows is marvelous at a whole range of things. It can do a gazillion things all at once, but we don't want that. Not as musicians, not using audio software. We want Windows to do one thing, just one thing, and that's to get audio into and out of the computer with no glitching, as a perfect audio stream, as audio, as sound that we can hear. And to do that at a low latency that makes playing virtual sounds and recording instruments a joy rather than a hassle. And these tweaks will help you do that. All of the tweaks here are designed really to accomplish one thing, and that's to clear stuff out of the way of the background. That's the basic idea. You do not want the processor to wander off and do something else while you're recording that once-in-a-lifetime take of Taylor Swift and Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. You want your processor and your computer to be focused on the task of moving that audio through the system. And that's the basic idea. Remove the stuff from the background. Don't let your computer do anything else other than run the audio software. Now, in this example, I'm using the Surface Pro 2017, but these tweaks are relevant to any computer, any desktop, any laptop, any hybrid laptop, any Windows 10 running tablet. They can all benefit from this same list of tweaks. So with that in mind, let's get on with the tweaks. First thing to do is to check whether you are running the Creators Update. Go to the bottom left to that Start button down here, right click it, and you get this great admin menu that comes up. Within that, you want System, select that. Now, if you don't see this screen, if you see a different screen, then you are not running the Creators Update. But just to check, go down the bottom here to where it says Windows Specifications, Edition Windows 10, the version number 1709. That's what you want to see. That is the full Creators Update. That is the update that was released in October 2017, and that's the version of Windows that we're talking about tweaking. Now, these first tweaks are what I would call vital tweaks. These are the absolute bare minimum of tweaks you need to do to get your system running correctly. After that, I'll also do some recommended and optional tweaks, but these are the ones to focus on, and it's all to do with power. So back to the Start button over here, right click and go for Power Options. Now, this is a different screen to what we used to get. And actually, we're not interested in this in particular. There may be some settings here that you can change, but it's better done in a different place, in the old school place. So to get that, we need additional power settings over here. This is the power options page that you would have seen in previous versions of Windows, and this is what we need to concentrate on. Now, there should be at least two settings here, one for balanced, one for high performance. The one for high performance may not exist, particularly if you're using a Surface or a tablet or a laptop. This high performance option may not be there. And that's a shame because it's really very, very important. So in order to make that appear, we need to do a little registry change. If you already have high performance here, there may be some other settings that are not included when we go to the advanced settings page on this. And so again, a slight registry change is required. So whether you have high performance here or not, let's have a look in the registry. Now, the registry can be a scary place, but do not worry, I will take you by the hand. Tap the Start button or click on it and type regedit, all one word, regedit. and you'll see it come up and you'll run it. Now, this is a horrible, very, very long, intense tree of folders and files and settings. You only need to get to one place, and it is as follows. It is H key local machine. Open that up. Go down to System. Open that up. Go down to Current Control Set. Open that up. Go to Control. Open that up. Then go down to Power. Click on that. On the right hand side, a bunch of information will come up. The piece of information that we're interested in is the one that says CS enabled. It's there, CS enabled. It's probably got a setting of 1. We need to change that setting. To do that, we double click, double tap, whatever you like, that CS enabled entry. And then a little edit window comes up with the value data. Change that to 0. Click OK. Now at this point we need to restart the system in order for that to take effect. Once you're back to the desktop, right click again on the Start button, select Power Options, and over on this side, Additional Power Settings. If you didn't previously have High Performance listed here as an option, then you should do now. Also check under Show Additional Plans, because sometimes there's something else under there. What you need to find is the one that now says High Performance. With that selected, click on Change Plan Settings. I'm assuming with this that you are using your system plugged in, because if you're running on batteries then you probably have a slightly different set of priorities. But generally speaking, if you're using audio software and making music and recording, then you want to have your system plugged in. So that's where my focus is. So for plugged in here, you want that to say never. You don't want the screen to turn itself off, because you don't want Windows thinking about turning the screen off. Next we need to click on Change Advanced Power Settings. This brings up a little window. Now if you didn't do the CS enabled registry tweak, then this may only have a few entries. This is one of the reasons why we have to do that, because we want to reveal all of the potential power settings within the system, because there are a couple of important ones in there that are vital to running your system successfully. These are the tweaks you need to do. Turn off hard disk. You want to set that to never, which is to set it to 0. Then you can ignore several of them until you get to USB settings. USB selective suspend setting. Set that to disabled. That prevents Windows from turning off USB ports. You don't want that to happen. You don't want your MIDI interface or your audio interface to suddenly not have the power it requires to run. Processor power management. This is a good one to check. For both minimum and maximum power state, you want it set to 100% when plugged in. 100%. This ensures that the CPU doesn't step down in speed, but rather stays at its maximum performance. And then under display, turn off display after. You want that set to never. Enable adaptive brightness. You also want that to off, because again it's something that Windows will want to try to monitor in the background, and you don't want that to happen. That's it. Hit apply, hit OK. Now that is saved within that power profile. You don't need to hit anything here other than to close the window and close this window. Now you may find that this window has actually changed. That's because some of the settings you've done in additional power settings have kind of overridden what would normally be on this page, which is a good thing. Next we need to look at background tasks. The first place to do this is with background apps. If you press down in the bottom right hand corner and bring up this side panel thingy, tap on all settings. In here go to privacy, and all the way down the bottom here on the left you'll find background apps. This is about letting apps run in the background, so rather than them closing when you've closed them, they just run in the background and can update you on what they're doing, what your latest Candy Crush score is, that kind of thing. We do not want that, so simply turn those all off. While we're here, we can also turn on quiet hours. That prevents notifications coming through. So, you might miss that email from somebody or that Skype message from someone while you're in the middle of a huge mix, but that's okay. For slightly deeper background tasks, we have to right-click on the taskbar at the bottom and select Task Manager. Now if you see this window here, you need to tap on More Details in order to expand it into a bigger view. Then at the tabs at the top, go to Startup. They could be all sorts of things listed here. These are all the applications, all the bits of software that start themselves up when you start the computer. All of this is going to be taking attention and processing power away from the CPU. And they all have the potential of popping up and saying something, announcing something right in the middle of something vital you are doing in your audio software. So all of these you'll want to disable. Now it's possible that there's something in here that's to do with your sound card, your audio interface. It may be a mixer application or something like that, in which case you can leave that enabled. But otherwise, select them and click Disable. Or you can also right-click and click Disable. One final check is any of the icons down here by the clock. Anything down here is currently running in the background. So if you use a little arrow here, just check it may be a Bluetooth monitor, it could be a Wi-Fi monitor, anything like that. If you're able to disable it or stop it from running, then you're probably going to find that to be helpful. Those are the vital tweaks. It really is that simple. Your system should now be running far, far better than it was before for audio production. Now there's a few more that I recommend, but you could see them as a bit more optional. First one is personalization. If you right click on the desktop and go to Personalize, go to Themes. Now the idea in here is purely to calm Windows down. You don't really want a slideshow, you don't want Windows thinking about downloading and displaying you a new background. You want to set it to a single background. You want to turn sounds off, which is here. It allows you to select no sounds at all, because if you're using your audio interface for making music, the last thing you want is an email ping or some other form of notification to break in to the audio stream. So I recommend setting that to no sounds. There's no need to have a screensaver or anything like that in this day and age. Next we're going to look at advanced system settings. Now these used to be vital tweaks, but it's been a long time since I've seen these actually make any difference one way or the other. However, if you're still encountering problems, then this is certainly something to try, and generally I would recommend that you do these anyway. To get to the advanced system settings, you now have to go via a slightly different route. If you tap on Start again and type System, you get a couple of different options. The one you want is the System Control Panel, which looks like this. If you can't find this page, you can also click on Start and type Control Panel. Bring up the Control Panel. This is the older Control Panel, and you'll find System in here somewhere. From this window, go over to the left where it says Advanced System Settings. On this screen, select Performance Settings. Now there's a whole bunch of options for visual effects. Now these days, your system and the graphics engine is powerful and efficient, and it doesn't really have a major impact on audio performance. However, if you want, you can hit Select for Best Performance, and that'll turn all of the animations, all of the graphical niceness off, and your system will certainly feel that bit snappier. Personally, I just take off the animations and the fades. They're the things that seem unnecessary to me, and make the system run that bit quicker for me. Next, go to the Advanced tab, and you have an option here under Processor Scheduling. Now, for a very, very long time, we've always set this to background services. So that's what I recommend. Some people say that's no longer necessary. I have never seen that be anything other than helpful. However, I haven't really seen it do anything at all in recent times. The next setting under here is Virtual Memory. Tap on Change. Now this is more to do with saving drive space, because Windows likes to create a swap file, also known as a page file, which is a chunk of hard disk that it throws data to and from when its memory fills up. Now generally speaking, we have tons of memory on our systems. 4 gigs, 8 gigs, 16 gigs, it is loads, and Windows doesn't really need to have a swap file or a page file anymore. However, it's there, and that's okay, but what we're trying to prevent here is from Windows allocating either a huge amount of hard disk space for it, which it can commonly do, and we also don't want it to change its size all the time, because that uses up unnecessary processing power. So my advice, my recommendation here is to set a custom size and to set the initial and the maximum size to the same. My recommendation is to set it to 4 gigs, which is 4096. 4096 in both entries. And that will provide Windows with a decent size swap file that it doesn't need to change or worry about, and that's there just in case it needs it. And I've found that to be very helpful on audio systems. Talking about drive space, the next tweak is to do with hibernation. If you right click down in the bottom left hand corner again, there used to be an option for running a command prompt, but now we have something called Windows PowerShell. Select the option Windows PowerShell brackets admin and open that up. It's just kind of a posh command line. Now with this we're going to disable hibernation. Hibernation is when your system sort of tries to remember everything and it shuts itself down so that it can open a couple of seconds quicker next time you start it up. We don't really want that. It uses up a huge amount of hard disk space which you could be using for recording and virtual instruments. So in my opinion, disabling hibernation is a really good thing. If you want to turn your system off, turn it off. Don't allow it to get into a hibernation state. Hibernation also is known to bring in all sorts of weird problems where things don't start up again properly, particularly with high-level bits of software like audio software. So here's what you do. At this command prompt, you type power cfg.exe space / hibernate space off. Hit enter. That's it. That's all you need to do. You may suddenly find that your system drive has a lot more space in it because Windows is no longer reserving some of that space in order to hibernate into. Type exit, it's gone. One last tip about virus software. Antivirus is just a fact of life. We kind of have to run with it if your system is running on the internet. However, if you're able to disable it when running audio software, then do so. Similarly with the internet, if you can turn off your Wi-Fi while using audio software, then do so. Use flight mode, for instance, if you're running a laptop or some other tablet device. But otherwise, if you're able to, then disable your antivirus when running audio software, as that may be a cause of some of the problems you're encountering. You should now be able to run all this sort of stuff. A couple of final tweaks if you're running a desktop computer in particular, and that's to get into the BIOS. The BIOS of the motherboard, that's the basic in-out system software setup of your motherboard. You usually get to it by pressing the F2 or the delete key as you boot the system up. This can also be relevant on laptops to a degree, but often the sort of settings I'm talking about are simply not there. But on a big desktop computer, then you should find this also helpful. You need to dig around in the power settings within the BIOS to find the CPU power settings. And there are 2 settings that you need to disable. The first one is called EIST, which is E-I-S-T, also known as speed stepping. And that's a technology that slows your processor down for unexplained reasons, for power saving reasons. We don't want that. We want the processor to be running all the time. So disable anything that's called EIST, E-I-S-T, or speed stepping. The other factor is something called C states. C states are sort of power states that the computer can go into, like hibernation or sleep mode, which again turn down the processor. We don't want that. So if you find an entry for C states, disable that also. Those 2 tweaks on a desktop system should make your CPU perform at its highest possible performance. But as with all these tweaks and all this messing around in Windows or in BIOS, please do so at your own risk. That's it. I hope that's helpful. If you've never come across me or multimedia technology before, then stick around. Check us out. I do a monthly roundup of news of music technology and all sorts of interesting things in software, synthesis, and gear for making music. I also make videos all about the Surface Pro and how you use that for music and audio production. And I've got a series all about using modular synthesis, as well as a stack of reviews on all sorts of bits of music technology. I'm throwing out new videos all the time. This is an exciting place to be, so please subscribe. Or if you feel so inclined, check out my Patreon campaign and throw us a few dollars. And now that your computer is wonderfully tweaked and ready for audio, go and make some tunes.